Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So I thought it was time to do, it's a bit late, but I thought it would be worth kind of doing the final roundup of my Make 9 from last year before I publish the video talking about my Make 9 for this year. So, I am standing here today because I'm going to be trying on and showing you the things that I did manage to finish on my Make 9 list from last year. It means you're getting almost an entire view of my apartment because it's just a small studio apartment. Yeah, so enjoy seeing my soft toys and the rest of the stuff in my apartment, along with that little like caddy. Stores a lot of like my knitting needles and stuff like that. Anyway, not what we're here for. So, I wanted to, like I said, give a final roundup of how my Make 9 went last year, just because when I kind of looked back on the things that I wanted to make and the things I did make, it helped me to kind of make the decisions for what I want to make this year. So I thought it would be worth going through my thoughts and things about my Make 9 from this year, talk briefly about what I'm hoping to take forward to this year, and then soon you'll see the Make 9 I've got planned for this year. So let's get started. I'm going to try and do this in the order that I think I did the original video, but not gonna lie, I can't remember if this is the same order. I'm just using the order that I used for the picture that I posted on Instagram. So I hope it's the same order. But anyway, I do want to quickly say, in case you spot this disgusting bruise, it's because I got my blood taken a couple of days ago now. And took my blood, the nurse, and then she remembered that she had to check my blood pressure. I had to do it twice because the first time it was really high because I wasn't expecting it, and I'm a bit of an anxious person, so I was prepared for my bloods to be taken, wasn't prepared for the blood pressure, so it spiked, and she was like, it's quite high. Is it normally high for you? And I was like, no, normally it's normal. So then she did it again a few minutes later, and it had gone to a perfectly normal level once I kind of breathed and calmed down. It's amazing how anxiety affects your body. But so I think because the blood pressure and the squeezing was done after I had my bloods taken, it kind of just made this disgusting bruise. So I'm really sorry. Don't look. And it will be better once, you know, I start wearing things and then you can't see it anymore. But just so you're not worried about what is happening here. It does just kind of look like a finger, like, jabbed me too hard. Anyway, let's start with the first one, which was the SATSUKI by SARI NORDLUND. And sadly, this is one of the projects I didn't finish last year. So it's still in its project bag. A beautiful project bag, I should say. Whoop. Yarn on the floor. It's clean. No, don't worry. And this is how far I got with the SATSUKI last year. So it's knit flat at the beginning because it's sort of, it's not even a drop shoulder. I guess it's more of a set and sleeve, but you don't really do a lot of shaping. But you start at the back, work that flat, and then you pick up stitches for the front piece, and then once you've joined the front, you work the cables here, which was so much fun and was the bit I was really looking forward to. And I did just kind of stall on this project because I started it quite early in the year, but I stalled because working flat, I was like, ugh, I'm not enjoying this. I don't want a purl, and it takes so long and I'm not making any progress. But then when I actually like fully told myself, like, come on, you know you want this jumper and you know you just have to, you know, work flat for a little while. The rest is worked in the round. Body in the round, sleeves in the round, neckline in the round. And then it went by really quickly. It did help that the back piece was probably the most boring thing to do, but eventually I kind of settled into that because it was just really easy, kind of mindless knitting, but having knitting and purling, I actually like that you have a bit of a change with the like movement that you're doing. So I just find that actually quite nice. Not all the time, I have to be in the mood for it, and I wasn't at the beginning of the year, but then I was really craving it, and finished the rest of the back and the front piece really quickly, joined it around, and have, you know, a little bit of it done. And since then I didn't really work on it because I was like, oh, I miss working flat. My brain, isn't it amazing? So I still have all the body left to do, both sleeves and the neckline. And I'm hoping to do the neckline sooner rather than later, because I think that will really like finish it off. Like to be able to see how it's really going to look once it's done. But yeah, not great progress on that first one. But all I can say is the yarn feels like a teddy bear. So it's Lana, Grossa, Ecopuno, and Brigitte number 3 is the like Mohair. And yeah, so I do plan on working on this throughout the year, but I'm not going to try and, you know, get it done within like the first quarter of the year or something. I'm just going to work on it when I feel like it and try and get it finished before the end of the year if I can, so that I can wear it next winter. So it's not going on my make 9 list for this year anyway, because, well, I've already started and it feels like cheating. But also, yeah, I like a fresh start every year for a make 9, and this is just one of my current works in progress, and I'll work on it slowly throughout the year. And, you know, a couple of rows every now and then, and it will be done by the end of the year, I'm sure. So that's the first one. Not complete. The second one is finished. I'm gonna go try it on. This one is the Tulip by Melody Hoffman, and as you can see, it is done. So it's a bit, I don't know if you can see like a fold crumpled because it's just been in my closet because I haven't really worn it. I don't think I've actually worn it properly even once. So first was the issue with the neckline. So if you've seen the Tulip, quite for a lot of people, it's quite an open neckline, and that's how it was for me. And so what I ended up doing, because I wasn't wearing it because of that, is it's worked top down. So you do start with a tubular cast on, and then work the ribbing, and then you start doing the raglan. Yeah, it's a raglan, increases. But to undo that, you have to unpick the cast on, which is even harder than a cast off, and undo the ribbing. And I managed to do the cast on quite nicely and easily, but it was the rest of the ribbing I couldn't undo, because this was knit with 2 strands of Nutiden and a single strand of silk mohair by Artyarns in the colour Hummingbird. And I love the colour, I really do, especially with the mohair because it has a lot of different colours in it, which I think isn't coming up on camera. But it's a very grippy yarn. So undoing the ribbing, I was just kind of, as I was trying to carefully like pull it apart, it was mainly the Nutiden which was causing me problems because it was just sticking to itself and it just ripped. So eventually I just cut it. And luckily there's not too many rounds of the ribbing. And I think here I've even done I think maybe an extra round or something. But what I then did is, after I did all the ribbing and picked up all those stitches, I worked 1 round where I was just knitting, but I decreased stitches throughout. I think it was like I knitted like 2 or 3 stitches and then knitted them together. So I did rapid decreasing and then switched to my smaller needles and did the ribbing as before, and then I didn't do an Italian bind off because I didn't want this to stretch too much, so it's quite firm because I just did a normal cast off, and I love the neckline now. So this is way more my kind of style and what I feel comfortable wearing, because with the open neckline I was like, it's such a warm jumper, it just didn't make sense to have it open to like here. So much more my style, and the sleeves are quite fitted, which I typically like and do like with this jumper. The thing that currently bothers me and why I'm not wearing it is the length. So I'm wearing a t-shirt which is slightly cropped, and the jumper is shorter than the t-shirt. So I already added length to this when I first knitted it, and I'm now kind of thinking maybe I should add a bit more, because it means I might actually get wear out of it. And I have more of the yarn, so it's not an issue. It's just unraveling all of this again. So I still need to have a think about it. Or maybe it just becomes a jumper that I only wear with kind of dresses and skirts. If that's what happens, that's what happens, as long as I wear it. Because I love the yarn. And the scalloped edge, I think, is so cute. So this one is done, but a couple of issues. One of them I managed to fix. And now I just kind of need to figure out how to wear it now that this big issue is taken care of. And I just have this other issue of awkward length. And I did kind of think, like, should I have made it a little bit bigger? But I think it is like 2 inches of positive ease or something, so I don't know. Maybe, but then at the same time I do like the fit of it. So, love the colour. I think I've said that many times now. So that's the first one that I finished. The next one on my list from my Make 9 was the Aosta Summer Top, which I finished. So this is by the Knit Pearl Girl, so it's part of the Aosta range, so you can see it's got the knit pearl kind of texture, Andalusian stitch I think it's called. And I did actually get quite a bit of wear out of this particular piece. Not in summer when I had kind of intended to wear it, because this is DK white yarn and it's just too warm. So this is more of a piece that I wore towards like the end of summer, when it started to become kind of a little bit more cooler as it became autumn. And I'm hoping to get quite a bit of wear out of it as it starts to get warmer at some point soon for spring. So I have got, like I said, I did get some wear out of it, but would like some more. There's another way to wear it more. That's a weird phrasing. Sizing wise, this is meant to have like no ease to like negative ease. I didn't want that. So I made like 2 or 3 sizes bigger than recommended. And I think it still could have been a little bit bigger because I like things a bit more loose. But then again, wearing it more for like spring and autumn, it's probably good that it's not too oversized. But I do kind of like the fit as it is. So it's not like tight, but it's a bit more fitting than some of the oversized things I've made. Sleeve wise, I made the sleeve shorter because the body's bigger and because it's a raglan. These were like, if I'd made them the recommended length, I think they would have been like down here. I also wouldn't have had enough yarn. I used the cotton by We Are Knitters. I had 4 skeins of it and I used it up completely. So I kind of made it work that I'd done the sleeves first and then I put all the yarn that I'd left into the body. And worked out perfectly. So I actually really like the length. So you can see kind of like longer than the tulip, for example. And so I really like, I love the colour. This cotton is unbelievable. I just wish We Are Knitters was a bit better with some of their marketing strategies, but you know, each their own if you want to support them or not. It's covered in Plötulopi here though, but that's my fault. Yeah, so lovely design. I just wish it had been designed with positive ease, but that's too bad on my part. Like, that's not how the design was intended. So there's only so much bigger I can go before there's no sizes. And yeah, so hopefully get a bit more use out of it in spring this year. And there's kind of colder summer days, I guess. For a summer evening, it's actually also quite nice. And knitting wise, it was really nice. The yarn was nice to work with, the stitch pattern was really nice, and I just really enjoyed this one. And I think I wouldn't mind making another one, but like I said, the negative ease thing doesn't make sense to me for kind of lighter weight garments that are meant to be for summer. I don't want anything touching me in summer. So we'll see whether I make another one or not, or if I just kind of throw the stitch pattern into a different pattern. But that's another one done. Next we have a smaller project. So these are the Cindy's Choice by Isabelle KRAEMER. So they're a pair of really big socks. I knit this from the book 52 Weeks of Socks, but I do think all those patterns are available individually now. And the yarn that I used is Rauwerk DK, which is 100% merino from Bavaria, so it's really nice. Well, to be honest, I was about to say like, oh, it's not that far away from me, but it is. Bavaria is huge, and I'm not exactly sure which part of Bavaria this yarn comes from, but it's just nice that it's from the same country that I'm living in, because that, I feel like, isn't as common nowadays. It's a lot harder to find. So I used 2 different colours. This dark one, I think it's called Obsidian, and this blue one is Vergiss mein nicht. And I had 2 skeins of the dark one skein of the light blue. And when these were finished, I think I had roughly the same amount of each of them left. And I've actually used the yarn that was left over to knit something else, which you would have seen if you've watched my like 12 knits of Christmas, where I know some people are really unhappy that I'm releasing them in February. You don't have to watch them. I just wanted to get them out there because otherwise there's a lot of stuff that I can't show anymore, and I thought it could still be interesting. But yeah, knitting wise, the yarn was a bit rough to work with, but I think that's because I did it during like the warmer months. I was knitting these like May, June maybe. And it was just, it's rustic yarn. It's not very rustic because it is still merino. But yeah, I think it was just the wrong time of the year to knit these. But after washing and bulking these, the yarn has really like softened up even more. And just, yeah, feels so nice. So I haven't actually worn these ever, even though they would have been perfect when it was freezing cold here in Germany, both in December and also a bit in January. But yeah, I just never reached for them because I have another pair of socks that I've made that I just wear all the time when I'm at home. There's rarely ever a time where I'm not wearing them. And so I just never reached for these, but I might try like the next time we get like a cold snap, because I'm sure we're still going to get one more this year, well, beginning of this year, that I'm going to try and actively reach for these and try and get some wear out of them, because it was a decent amount of knitting. So 3.75mm needles I think is what I used, and it was quite a few stitches to cast on, and you know, quite a bit of ribbing, but that was fine. I didn't find the colourwork that enjoyable, I have to say. There were, you know, points where you really had to make sure you were catching floats, and that just slows me down. And it was also just like the colourwork was over so quickly, and there was nothing like super interesting, and yeah, by the time I sort of got into it, it was already over. Then you had to work like these decreases for the shaping of the sock, and I didn't really enjoy that either. It just, I kept having to check the pattern, count my stitches and make sure it was all going well. The short row heel was fine from what I can remember. And the thing I really enjoyed was knitting the foot, because I could just knit without having to count or worry about anything. I just occasionally, you know, would measure how much more do I have left. And I always enjoyed doing the sock, the toe of a sock. So, and especially in a contrasted colour, that was really nice. So I probably, like I've said before, won't make another pair of these. Maybe as a gift for someone, but I might change my mind once I actually start wearing them, so who knows. But another one done, but sadly not worn at all. The next one is actually the first one I started and the first one I finished, which I'd actually completed before I ever released my original Make 9 video, and that's the Wild Posy hat. First off, the shape is so weird. I love like all the different pattern and textures that you knit, but the shape of this thing is so bizarre. But I got a lot of wear out of this. I've only ever worn it with my long hair though. So, as you can see, it's like a little bit slouchy, and I find the shape of it is a lot better when I'm wearing it than when you hold it up. And like I said, I got so much wear out of this because it's made with Plötulopi Health Double. It was just, when it was freezing cold, this was the best hat ever. Everyone else at like the Christmas markets was like, oh, I'm so cold. And I was like, I feel great. I don't know what you're talking about. So it was probably one of the best knits I did this year, even though I had issues with the pattern. Second Melody Hoffman pattern in this make 9, and I also had issues with this one. So with this one I had issues with gauge. I had started the hat, had knitted most of it, and then was like, this is big, and it came out like sweater sized. And so I unraveled it, did it again, and I just couldn't get gauge. So after the first like failure, I was like, okay, let's knit a gauge swatch. And I couldn't get gauge unless I wanted a fabric that was super stiff, and the original was knitted in this yarn, so I should have been able to get gauge. And so then what I did is use the needle size that I like the most looks wise and look wise, and then just did a smaller size. And sizing wise it came out pretty good. I don't think I would want it any smaller or bigger, but it's just, you know, it's so frustrating that can't fully like knit the pattern, because no matter what I did I couldn't really get gauge. Even with smaller needles, when it was all like tight, still wasn't getting gauge. So the pattern itself I don't think I'll make again. As much as I loved doing all these different textures, the shape of it is like, it's okay, it's not the best hat I've ever worn. And I think what I really love about this hat is the yarn, how warm it is, how, I do have to say, you can probably see like the halo of this yarn, so it's very fluffy, which is great for when it's cold. But most people, I think nearly everyone, when it gets warmer, everyone's going to find this really itchy. But when it's really cold, this is amazing. And it's quite lightweight, so this is less than 100 grams of Plötulopi. And yeah, so it's really lightweight, keeps you really warm. And it was just a great hat for this winter. But like I said, I think I'll use the yarn again to make a hat, but I don't think I'll be using this knitting pattern again. It just wasn't worth it in my opinion. So another one done. A sort of like success story, but also like a I've knitted better hats, as in like knitting wise. That is the most worn hat I've ever made because of the yarn. Then another finished object is the Grossa shawl by Fiber Tales. Oh, I love it so much. So this was knitted in Nutiden Health Double, and the original pattern, Lerge from Fiber Tales, the designer, says that she used almost all of the 3 plates that she had, and she was like 300 grams should be enough, but you know, watch your gauge, because if you knit a little bit looser than her, you're not going to have enough yarn if you buy 300 grams of Nutiden. I knit quite loosely. I think I did go down half a needle size, because that's normally what I kind of have to do, especially with Nutiden. I knit even looser, but I think mine came out way smaller than hers. I still haven't measured my gauge. I need to do it. Every time I show this off I do say that, but mine is, I think, smaller than hers. Like I said, I will measure the gauge because I want to know, and I want to make another one. But on her it looks huge, but that could also be because Lerge is a much smaller woman than I am. I'm quite big, so for me it's just a bit of an awkward size. It's not big enough and it's not small enough. But it was so much fun to knit. I did like struggle a bit with these cable designs here because it's a bit fiddly. But after I finished that, the rest of the shawl went by so quickly, because you start by casting on all of the stitches, which I love, and you decrease. And then you just work these braids whenever you get to a point where your decreases sort of like matches up with the braid. So then you work the braid. And yeah, it's just the beginning of a project when you're all like, I'm excited, I love the yarn, ooh, new project, new cast on. You have so many stitches but motivation is high. And then as you start to decrease stitches and you're maybe a bit like, I'm bored of this now, you haven't got many stitches left. So I remember kind of like getting to here and being like, I have like nothing left. And I just finished it really quickly after that. So really, really lovely pattern, and the colour I think is just perfect for the shawl, because I think that's kind of the best representation of it. It's a green, and a very like spring green with a little bit of yellow in there too. Love it. I think I've worn this once though, because of that awkward sizing. So I feel like it's not big enough to kind of, well, no, it's not small enough, in my opinion, to wear it kind of like this, a sort of like shawl scarf thing. But, so it's not small enough for that. I'm confusing my words here. But it's not big enough for me when I'm like, oh, I'm chilly while I'm knitting, or I'm sitting somewhere and I need something. It's too small for this. Because if I just wear it as like kind of a wrap, it's really weird that my arms are covered. It's like a t-shirt. So it's not big enough and it's not small enough. It's just awkward. I feel like Goldilocks. And yeah, so I'd like to make another one, but I will check my gauge. But to be honest, I like the fabric I got. It's flowy and drapey. It's not too see-through. It's not too dense. And if I went up a needle size to get the right gauge and get the right size of shawl, I don't think I'd like the fabric as much. So if I make another one, I might stick with this needle size, but I'm just going to cast on extra stitches, because you always have these 2 repeats of the flower leaf motifs, and I can just cast on extra stitches like in multiples of this. I think it's actually describing in the pattern how to make it bigger anyway. I'll just have to use some Nutiden where I maybe have more like 400 or 500 grams instead of 300. I only used like 160, 70 grams or something for this whole thing, and it was meant to use almost 300. So something definitely went wrong. Like I said, I still need to measure my gauge. I keep forgetting. But if I then do get gauge, then it could just be, if I then also make it bigger, I might run out of yarn. So I need to have a bit of a think about that. I also need to actually see if I have a colour of Nutiden that I think would work for the shawl. But I still love this one. Like, even if I haven't got a lot of wear out of it, I'll make it work somehow. I'll figure it out, because I think it's just so beautiful. So that's the Grow shawl. Can you tell I loved it, even if I haven't worn it? It's also just like the best knitting experience. The next one is another project that I haven't finished. So this is the Sparky by Andrea Mowry. This is how far I got. I think since the last time I've shown this, didn't really get much further. Maybe a row or two. But I've got a cute bumblebee stitch marker. I think I show this off every time because of how cute it is. And yeah, you can see, colour work wise, I haven't got very far. I really struggled with the colour work on this one. And I think it's because the repeat itself is quite long, so it's hard to memorise. There's also increases you have to work, so everything just gets even bigger and you have even more things to stress and worry about. And I love the colour, so I know I'll be finishing this, also hopefully at some point this year, but not part of my make line for this year. And I'm not kind of putting stress and pressure on myself to try and get it done sooner. I'm like, I'll find a moment, probably like the SATSUKI, where I'll sit down and really tell myself half an hour every couple of days you work on it, and then it will slowly start to get done, and I'm sure by the end of it I'll be like, oh no, the intricate colour work is over. Because after I've worked the chart for this particular colour work, it's then kind of exactly the same as the Spice cardigan I've done before, where you just have like a 1x1 colour work motif that you work. And that's super easy and breezy to get into and just knit. So I've got good times are ahead with this pattern. And the yarn is incredible for this. So I'm using Vovo by Retrosaria. The green's my main colour. This is one of my contrast colours because I'm going to go through 3 different colours for my contrast, just because I think it'll be beautiful and autumnal, and I really want to get to those places where I want to change colour, because I think, you know, that's going to be so interesting to see, and if I like it, if I want to change it, just have to get through this colour work chart first. So it will get picked up at some point this year. I'm sure I'll eventually start craving some colour work, and then I can work on this. I've got other colour work projects on the go that I also need to work on, so it might be a while before I work on that. But yeah, so that's the second one I haven't finished. And I should say, I don't mind. I don't mind that, you know, I've got these 2, the SATSUKI and the SPARKY, that aren't done. It's fine. It's just, it helps me. All of the things I didn't finish, all of the things I did finish, they all help me to kind of get a better understanding of what I like to knit, what I like to wear, and it's just all about, you know, figuring out who I am. The next project is also a finished one. Completely finished. This was meant to be the Forager by Melody Hoffman. It's not, because screw that pattern. Sorry, I'll be more professional than that. So I started off with the pattern exactly as it said, was doing the raglan increases, and then eventually, you know, was checking my stitch count, and it was off. And then I was like, okay, what have I done wrong? And then kind of realised, no, the pattern was wrong. Got in contact with the team and going to, oh yeah, you're right. We'll pass it on to Melody to try and fix. I don't even know if they said that. I think they just said, yep, you're right. Anyway, and so it then got to a point where time was passing and an update wasn't released to the pattern. So I was like, I'm enjoying the look of this yarn, knitted up at this gauge. I like it as a raglan. I'll just calculate myself the stitch count I need. So I did all that, completely recalculated the pattern, because it was just that, it's not that that the stitch count was wrong, it's also that the size I was making, and for some of the other ones I calculated this as well, the final body stitch count you were going to have wouldn't give you the correct finished bust circumference or chest circumference based on the gauge of the pattern. I think it was either too big or too small, I can't remember. I remember the sleeves would have been way too small based on what was written in the pattern. And so it was just really frustrating to have spent that money on this pattern and have to recalculate the whole thing. So I kind of went with the stitch count I had, and then calculated with my gauge, which was the pattern gauge, what stitch count did I want for the sleeves, what did I want for the body, and then calculated how I'd have to do the increases. I had to do a lot more for the sleeve, I think, than the body. And I also cast on a different amount of stitches, pretty much from here down to my own pattern, or at least my own mathematics. The yarn is Untitled DK by Woolly Knits. I love this yarn. I love the tweediness. I love the rusticness. It's lightweight, but it's really warm. The only thing is, I haven't worn it because, let me find it. The ends aren't woven in, and I haven't washed it or blocked it. Pretty much all the frustration I had with, it was meant to be a mindless kind of easy knitting experience because it's just a raglan. And then having to recalculate everything, it just meant that it became really stressful. So by the time this was done, I was just like, get it out of my sight. So I unfairly punished the knitted item, which isn't okay. And once I finished filming this video, I'm going to weave in the ends and block it. Because there's not even that many ends to like weave in. It's non-superwash yarn. It's grippy yarn, so I felted the ends together. So it's 2 for each sleeve and 2 for the body. That's 6 ends to weave in. That's nothing. So I'm going to do that because I really would like to wear it, and it's just frustrating that I haven't. So yeah, this is sort of a success but a failure. It's a failure for the original pattern. I do not recommend that pattern. Still hasn't been fixed. I've had other issues with Melody Hoffman's pattern, some of the issues I've talked about, but also with the test knit I did for her. She did respond to my email, but that was to do with the test knit and not with the forager. But yeah, don't buy the pattern until it's updated. And to be honest, it kind of just made me see, after all the other experiences I had with not being able to get gauge, with the gauge sometimes and the stitch count not being right with her patterns, I'm like, I'm not going to be buying any more of her patterns currently, no matter how beautiful I think they are, because I just think there's too many mistakes in them. And once that will change if I see older patterns get fixed. The main one being the forager, especially because I find this is the beginner friendly pattern that she has for Raglan, and people are going to get a jumper that doesn't fit properly, even if they do everything right. I've talked about this enough. I'm not going to keep going on about it, but yeah, love the jumper that I created. Did not like the forager. Awful experience. Please don't buy it. And then finally, you know what? I'm just going to keep this on for now. I'm enjoying this. I'm going to keep this on because I haven't worn it, and it deserves its like turn to be shown off and in the spotlight. The final pattern didn't even start. So the 9th one was the Talk by Albiona McLaughlin. I was going to do it with Nutiden held double, which is what's recommended in the pattern. And I just never fully decided on which colours of Nutiden I wanted to use, because I didn't have 600 grams of one colour to use for the pattern, which is how much I need for my size. But I did have a variety of different colours where I had 300 grams. So if I'm holding a double, I can use 2 different colours. And I just never fully decided on which colours I wanted to use. And I also didn't, and I think I still don't own the pattern, and so I kind of just was like, I have so much other stuff to knit, do I really, and I have the yarn and the pattern for so many things, do I really want to spend more money on a pattern? Even though I think I'm going to love it and knit it quite often, I was like, let's just leave this for now, and I can always do it in the future. So that one I didn't even start. It's not going on my Make 9 for this year. If inspiration strikes and I finally figure out what colour I want to use, I might buy the pattern. I'm pretty sure I don't own it. I will correct myself down here if I do actually already own it. But yeah, if I end up knitting it this year, great. If I don't, that's fine. So those are the patterns I finished, or the projects. So 6 out of 9 I did complete. 2 of them are on my needles and will hopefully be done this year. And then 1 didn't even start. That's fine. So what did I learn from last year? Well, first of all, the Grossa was my favourite thing that I knitted, as in the knitting experience. I got through it super quickly. I was addicted to it. I pretty much knit on it monogamously because it was so good. And that just says to me, like, it was the yarn, which was lovely, Nutiden, and then also the pattern. It was just great and exactly the kind of thing that I love. The SATSUKI, I struggled with at the beginning, but then eventually, kind of as I got into the flow of it, loved knitting it. Just got frustrating that I loved it. I finally learned to love knitting it flat, and then I had to work on the round, and I was like, I'm going back to knitting it flat. So I just need to now get into the groove of knitting it in the round again. Well, not again. Like, I've barely done an inch. And wear-wise, the pattern I got the most use out of was the Wild Posy hat. That is definitely the one I've worn most winter days when it's been really cold. But that just kind of says to me, like I said, it wasn't the pattern, it was the yarn. So that's something I need to keep in mind of for accessories that are meant to be for like winter when it's really cold. Plötulopi is probably going to be my go-to. Single or double, don't care, but incredible yarn for when it's cold. Things I didn't love. The tulip neck line. Hated it. Undid it. Now I'm still kind of having issues with the length of the body. So I need to figure out whether I can make it work as it is, or if I need to use the remaining yarn to undo the hem, knit it a bit longer, and then do the hem again. But the knitting experience was fine, it was just the fit of it with the neckline wasn't for me. And I think it also came out, the neckline is bigger on the bigger sizes than it is on the smaller sizes, so that annoys me. The forager was a lovely knitting experience once I had calculated everything, but terrible pattern. It's just, you shouldn't have to pay like however much for the pattern and then have to recalculate it because it's completely wrong. So that was an absolute fail, but that for me just once again solidified, I don't think I'll be knitting Melody Hoffmann's patterns anymore. Like I said, until I see a change, until I see that things are better. Then the issues I had with the Wild Posy hat with the gauge. Once again, all 3 of the Melody Hoffmann patterns that were on the list are all in the didn't like some of the experience because issues with the knitting pattern. And the last thing I didn't really enjoy was the colour work on the Sparky. I don't know if it's the particular like colour work chart or if it's just the mood I was in when I was knitting it, but it wasn't happening. So that's something to keep in mind for me, that for my make 9 I maybe shouldn't be too kind of, not even ambitious, but maybe focus on more kind of easy knits that maybe have a little bit of a challenge, like the Grossa with the cables, but not such an intricate colourwork yoke when I haven't done that in quite a while. I've done it with fingering weight yarn, but that was a really nice colourwork chart to work, and this just wasn't right for me. I'm still going to knit through it because I think it's beautiful. Kind of going forward, my make 9 this year, which there'll be a separate video for this, the biggest thing is I put too many jumpers on my list this year. So I think it was 5 out of the 9 patterns were jumpers, and one of the other ones was a top. That was the Aosta summer top. So it's just too many jumpers. So for this year I've drastically reduced that and focused more on not just smaller projects, but just different projects, because otherwise you just get a bit bored of like, okay, we're doing another raglan or we're doing a drop shoulder, but you're constantly doing sweater construction. And with all the other sweaters I was test knitting and knitting for myself, and this end is annoying me, it just wasn't a smart idea. So the plan for this coming year is fewer sweaters in my make 9, which you'll see in the upcoming video. And I also kind of just figured out some of the, you know, things I really enjoy knitting, like the Grossa. I kind of already knew that because of the Hummingbird, but the Grossa confirmed it. And then also more kind of rustic yarns, because this is rustic, the Grossa, the tulip sweater, Wild Posy hat, the Cindy's Choice socks, they're all, even the Sparky with Vovo, that's a non-superwash yarn, so it's definitely the current love of mine. So going forward this year, I am going to try and finish the SATSUKI and the Sparky some point this year. They'll just be treated as normal whips now. And yeah, I'll share my make 9 very soon. So I hope this was sort of interesting. It's mainly just, I guess it's nice for me to talk through like what the experience was like, and like I said, what I've learnt and what I will do differently going forward. And yeah, just learning and trying to make more things I'm actually going to wear. So I know a lot of people don't like planning their knits, and they definitely don't like the pressure of the Make 9, but I just don't really feel any pressure with it. Didn't finish 3 of them, didn't even start one. Meh, it's fine. There's a reason why it happened, so it's fine. Yeah, so I hope it was interesting in some way. Maybe you also got inspired to make one of these things, or to be honest, if the one thing that people get from this video is to not buy the forager pattern, life's great. You know, you support the designers you want to support, but like I said, the forager is filled with mistakes. Don't buy it. Just don't do it until there's been an update to the pattern, because it's bad. It's really bad. Oh, I'll shut up now. So thank you so much for watching. If you did get anything from it, please give this video a thumbs up. That would be amazing. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.